Happy Friday, everyone, and thanks for joining us here on Valley News Live at 4. I'm Courtney Lockey. We begin tonight with continued coverage of pro-Palestinian protests on college campuses nationwide. Members of the University of Minnesota's Divestment Coalition are meeting with the Board of Regents to discuss possible divestment. This comes after a key demand by protesters was met. The U revealed the Israeli-connected companies it invests in. WCCO's Jeff Wagner explores if the school will make the move and if that's even possible.
The University of Minnesota's endowment fund is worth $2.27 billion. Of that, a sliver, or less than 0.25%, is publicly invested in companies located in Israel or that have ties to the country, including U.S. defense contracts. It totals about $5 million. Of the 41 companies the U disclosed, the largest accounts include Nova, which manufactures semiconductors, as well as U.S. companies Caterpillar and Honeywell. All of it is in the form of stocks and bonds that are held indirectly through larger funds. And again, the U only disclosed its publicly traded investments. After the information was released, the U of M Divestment Coalition said on social media, if it's only 0.1% of the endowment, divestment should be easy.
For the publicly traded ones, in principle, yes, they can do that.
Kelly Grotke is an expert in higher education finances, including endowments and divestment. She says that while divesting from public funds is possible, doing the same for the university's private investments is a challenge.
Generally, they operate under contracts, which may prevent disclosure. There can be a broad assertion of intellectual property rights over the particular strategies of different funds. And I would be very surprised in certain cases if the university could even publicly disclose or divest from those things.
Based on Grotke's research, a majority of the university's endowment is tied up in private investments.
You can look for updates from that meeting right here on Valley News Live on air and online.